So hey everyone, and in this video we are going to talk about authentication token and refresh token. So in the last video we have actually covered the register API and the login API, right? So I hope everyone has watched that because we are going to continue with the same code with the additional data. So you can see once the user logs in, then you can see that we simply get this response. But what actually happens is when the user logs in and whenever I try to use anything again and again, what actually happens is you just have to refresh things or things like that. For example, I would just give you an example of the task manager. Okay, so first of all we are going to complete the task manager routes, then we are going to create some middlewares which would check or create our authentication token. Okay, so first of all, we would say when the user logs in, we are going to return the authentication tokens. So here itself, when the user logs in, I would simply generate authentication tokens here. Okay, so I would just go here and I would just say const auth token or generate a token. I hope everyone knows what is a token. It's like a like when you visit a movie hall, you receive a movie ticket, right? So even if you go out, you still have the movie ticket. You can go back again if in that duration. Okay, so if you want to go to the washroom or somewhere else, you still have that movie token. Okay, so it's like that. So movie ticket, similar to this, we have auth token. That means if you just close your browser and after 5 minutes you open your browser again, you can see you're still logged in. Okay, so that happens actually because of your tokens, that is auth token and refresh token. Okay, so auth token, again auth token is just having, first of all you'd be storing some validation thing. So I would just say I would be having my user ID, so I would just name it as something like user ID. So I would be having my user ID inside that token so that I can verify. Okay, so user ID, so user, actually existing user dot underscore id. So when you just get the existing user as a response from here, you can see I got the existing user. Okay, so I'd get all the details. Okay, id, email, password, whatever it is. Okay, so if I show you what kind of response you get, for example, if you're trying to log in with these details and this was the correct details, so you can see what actually happens here is I'm trying to log in. Okay, actually what happened is I have to uncomment this also. Okay, and I would just comment this out. So first of all, if I try to click on send, so you would see that as a response, you would see that you got an ID, name, password, email. So this is the existing user object which I'm talking about, which I get from here. And I'm obviously sending this as a response here. Instead of this, right now, I'm just creating a token here and I'm extracting ID out of it. I extracted ID out of it, right? So after this, I would simply say, we want to say this also has a unique password so that nobody can judge the authentication token. So we would simply create a variable here named as JWT secret key. Okay, so JWT secret key would be created, suppose, and I would just say equals, and I would just say suppose the key is HJ123. Okay, so this is it, and again I would just create another key. Suppose I'll just name it as JWT refresh secret key. Okay, that's it. So I've just created these two keys and I would just name it like refresh key. Okay, JWT refresh key, that's it. So you can see I've created two different keys. One is for auth token, one is for refresh token. I'll explain the logic of auth token and refresh token later on, but right now we are just creating those tokens. Okay, so here we have to simply say process.env JWT secret key. Okay, we are just going to use that here. And then after this, guys, one more important thing is you want to say at what time it would expire. That means after 10 minutes, 20 minutes. That means suppose if I am using a website and after 5 minutes I come back. So I would again be able to see the changes. I don't need to log in again and again. But again, if I visit after 10 minutes, that means at 11th minute, I won't be able to see the content. I have to log in again. Okay, so I have to log in again. That means the token has been expired. So this is the expiry time. You just say expires in, and here you just need to say, suppose I want to expire it in 10 minutes. So 10 m. Okay, so 10 minutes. And similarly, guys, we are going to have our refresh token. Okay, so refresh. underscore secret key. That's it. So you can see I generated a refresh. Okay, actually I think the name is different here. Okay, I think the name is here. So you can see JWT secret key and then refresh secret key. These two are here. And what I said was I simply generated an auth token, and similarly we generated a refresh token, right? Refresh token. That's it. So auth token and refresh token have been generated. You can see these two are generated, and both of them would be expired in some time. So let's say that the refresh token would be expired in 30 minutes. Why the time is different? I'll explain the logic later on, but right now you have these tokens, right? So now as a response, I would again send this thing as a response so that you know how the tokens are generated here. Okay, so here itself, I'm just going to say, since we have it, so again we are going to say as a response, we're going to send these three data. Okay, so inside the data object you would be having our auth token, refresh token, and also the user. Okay, so now let's try to log in here. So if I click on send, so you can actually see we generated an auth token, we generated a refresh token, and we got the user. Okay, so you can see this token is again hash. Nobody can judge that whose ID it contains, whose user ID it contains, for how many minutes it's valid. So this is actually a token which is very helpful later on. So right now we generated a token. Okay, so now first of all create the to do APIs, that is task manager APIs, so that we can actually use these tokens to judge if the user is logged in. If the user is logged in, then the user would be allowed to create a task manager task, and then they can update a task or delete a task. If they are not logged in, so they can't do these operations. Okay, so for that we have to use these tokens to verify the user. Okay, so first let's create the APIs, very simple APIs. Here you can see we created the task routes. Okay, so what actually happens is if I go to the task routes, actually let's do one thing, let me just save it here. Okay, then I'll save this also, and I'll just copy this. Guys, now you know that in the last video we created two directories, user APIs and task APIs. So inside this I'm just going to create a new request. So first of all, I would just check the task API. Okay, that is the very basic tasks route. So it would give me what? It would simply give me task routes are working. That means I'm just saying whenever I visit this route, you can see task routes are working. That means everything is fine. Now here I'm just going to create a CRUD operation for task. Okay, so CRUD. Okay, create, read, update, delete for task, right? So for that, we would be creating a task schema. So I'll just create a new file and let me just name it as task schema.js, right? Now, similar to user schema, we are going to create a task schema. So its name would be starting from task schema, and I won't be needing this. I'll be just sending task schema as export. Okay, so task schema as export, that's it. And now inside this I have to simply say it would be having what? So task would be again having some title. Okay, so title would be the something, so it's required, and required, and it's a type of a string. Then again we would be having some description, so again it's required, right? And whose task it is, so I would just say, for example, I'll just name it something like owner of the task, whose task it is. And I can just say that it's actually again containing what, an object ID, that means a user ID which is saved into my database. Okay, you know that we have users into our database, so from that I'm going to extract the ID of the user and save that here, so that it's a user's ID which I can refer to. Okay, and I would just say refer to users collection, and then it's required. Okay, then these three things are here, and one more thing is completed or not completed, so I would just say status. Okay, I would just say status, so status. And I would just say that here suppose we have type string and default it's pending. Okay, but later on I would make it completed or not complete, like that. Okay, so default it's pending, right? So you can see that these are all the things which I would be having for the task, and we don't need the bcrypt part here. That's it. So you can see now we have the task. Now what we would do is we would be using this into our task route for the CRUD operation. So here I would just say that I would just uncomment this out, and I actually have to look for task schema inside models. Okay, so you can see that everything is done here. Now what we are going to say is we are going to call our error middleware also, which we created inside the models. Okay, so we are going to call our error middleware, and it's actually inside what? Inside middlewares middlewares. Inside this, we have to look for error middleware. That's it. We have imported the middleware, and similarly, we are going to have other middlewares for auth token checking. So later on, we'll check that. But right now, you can see we have the error middleware. Now, similar to this, we are going to also call our create response function here also, so that the code structure is maintained everywhere. Okay, so now you can see this is also done.